Hi, good evening, guys. How are you doing? Welcome to this Thursday session of the Early Show with Lata Srinivasan. Today, I have a very interesting guest and, of course, an eminent personality in the field of politics, Ms. Priyanka Chaturvedi, who is the deputy leader of the Shiv Sena. And of course, she's been a prominent face in the field of politics over the last decade, uh, as she was with the Congress earlier, and then she joined the Shiv Sena last year. But what I love about her and why I wanted to speak to her was that she's a very vocal person, very dignified. As soon as I mentioned that I was speaking to her, a lot of people messaged me and said, she's a wonderful person. It's great that you actually have the opportunity to speak with her. She's made an impact on the field of politics, and as a woman.
So firstly, Priyanka ji, thank you so much for joining me in this little conversation. You're a person I've admired in the field of politics, somebody who's been very dignified throughout, her career, and I think being a woman at the forefront of politics in India, it's a huge responsibility as well as I think difficult situation given how politics is in our country today. Okay, so my first question to you is, what was the inspiration behind you joining politics?
So firstly, thank you so much for having me on this live discussion. I'm not used to doing Instagram live. That's why it took a little time for me to adjust. And I think we're still not well adjusted as per the settings. Thank you for your kind words. Firstly, about the dignity, etc., that I bring to politics as per your words. I'm just repeating it.
Yeah.
And my journey, as far as what brought me into politics, I think the intense sense of wanting to contribute to the society, and at a time when Mumbai saw one of its worst terror strikes was when it actually got me thinking that as someone who is a citizen of the country as well as a resident of a city, I totally love seeing it in such a miserable fashion was something which I just could not handle, and I realized that my calling was more to do with being there for people and trying to be the change that we all continue to speak about, but don't want to really be a part of that change. And with change, I mean being part of the political space. So everybody looks at it as a dirty word. Families that women who come from non-political families are dissuaded from pursuing something like this, more so because there is no, I would say, there's no curtain. There's also, in terms of financial stability, there is nothing that is guaranteed. So the only thing that can drive a person to politics is pure passion to be able to serve. And I started out through an NGO. I began an NGO, and I then went on to join politics. And I think the kind of satisfaction it has given me to be able to connect with people, to be able to speak on issues that matter, to be in a position where I can also be speaking about policies that will shape not just India's destiny today, but in the future, we leave behind a generation which not just loves their country, but is proud to be a citizen of that.
That's a very noble thought, I must say, and I think it's great that you decided to actually step into the political world, and bring some changes. Can you hear me? Are you there? Well, I think there's a bit of a there's a bit of a connectivity issue. Hello? Hello? Uh, Guys, please don't send me any requests. Please do not send me requests. Thank you so much. Please don't send me requests. It becomes difficult to add the person I'm going live with. Please do not send me requests. I'm telling you guys again, kindly refrain. Um, uh, I think it got disconnected. Uh, Please kindly don't send me requests, guys. It keeps getting,
I'm so sorry.
disconnected. No,
I don't
no
know
problem.
where the problem came from. So I don't know
No,
how
no.
much of what I was speaking you could hear, but
No, I got the whole thing.
oh, great,
It was fine. Yeah, great.
great,
Um,
great, great.
but as a woman, when you entered politics, what were some of the challenges you faced, if any?
Oh no, it would be actually a lie if I said there were no challenges. Breaks that as compared to women who perhaps 20 years back, if they would have tried, was not as, I would say, a smooth journey. But it hasn't been a smooth journey per se, because women who come in political spaces, who come in public spaces, are bound to face all kinds of comments, face the kind of trolling that they do, face the kind of misogyny that comes with it, face the kind of slander that becomes a part and parcel of your living. People sitting in judgment about you, those who don't even know you, and more because I was more media face on television, on social media platforms. People perceive a certain image of you. They don't know you, but they sit and judge you, and they come up with any kind of absurd comments, which can be hurtful at times. Can come up with comments which damage your mental peace of mind, can come up with threats which make you worry about your family, come up with lots of things about you, and not that. So that is part of the public platform we are a part of. The other part is within the organizations. So for a woman to make a difference in politics at every point in time, she has to keep proving that she is worthy of the position she holds. While this may not be the case usually with men, in terms of if she's seeking a ticket, she's called too overambitious, wanting something too soon, just because she happens to be a woman. Then she has to continue to prove that she is capable of winning. The winnability is always the onus of the woman, while a man just walks in and he says that, I can win this particular election if the ticket is handed over to me. A woman is also assailed with a lot of self-doubts, whether she would be able to live up to the expectations of the organization that she's representing. So those are a couple of things which I also did face. In terms of course, the character assassination that becomes a part and parcel of your life. Developing a thick skin because I come totally from a non-political background. I'm someone who's extremely also very sensitive in nature. So it did used to impact me a lot when people used to sit without knowing me, someone commenting about me. It used to impact me a lot. My family was very apprehensive about how I will move ahead because there's no political certainty. And last, I'd say that the kind of hard work you put in that takes you away from your family. People think that politicians don't work at all, or politicians are just, seek votes, and after they've sought these votes, they don't do anything at all. But I have seen that it's a 24/7 job with no weekends off, and there is accountability because we now more accountability, more so because people are getting more aware about their expectations of elected representatives. So I think these are a few challenges within the organization, having a growth path, having people trust a woman, giving her positions of power, and in terms of public comments that you face. So those are two things which I feel were a bit stressful initially. And of course, it used to worry me having to tell my family that I do feel that I'll be able to make a difference. And maybe 5 years down the line, this is where I started off, that I would join national politics. I started at a local level. I was very clear I'll join national politics. I was also very clear that I will go to the parliament. That is where I wanted to contribute. And God has been kind, and I am now in the Rajya Sabha.
An MP. Yeah, that's fantastic, and I think you've paved the way for a lot of other women as well. When you're talking about the negativity and criticism and the slander, how do you as a person deal with all that?
I have said this at many forums because it's an issue which is very close to my heart. As someone who came from I mean, it doesn't have to do with family or no family.
Right.
Even women who are coming from families who are from politics have also faced similar trolling, similar character assassination. I just feel that because it's such a male-dominated society, we are so patriarchal in nature. Politics more so. Very few women representation in the political parties and in the political system per se. 14% is the highest that we've seen representation in the parliament. While we, feel great about it, but we're still far away from, equal representation.
Right.
So it did affect me a lot, and I'd be dishonest to all the women out there who might be just tuning in to listen to my story to say that, oh, it did not impact me, oh, you just develop a thick skin. It doesn't come overnight. I have spent nights crying, seeing these threats. I have spent days worrying about my family's safety. I spent days when I'm out in, larger gatherings where a threat has been received that what if, someone just walks up or, you never know.
Right. Yeah.
So those are things that did impact me, but I did realize that sooner or later I would need to overcome this sense of sensitivity around this profile that I have created, because inherently so it's a very public profile. People do feel a part of your journey. They do feel that since they have seen you move from a totally non-political Twitter account to being a part of politics, so they feel invested in my story. So they feel that it's okay to judge and speak about me or pass a comment, even if at times it's unnecessary. But I always say, and I always believe that people should be less judgmental on all these platforms. You don't know my journey. I cannot be a judge of your journey. Your troubles could have been different. Your struggles would have been different. For me to sit in judgment that, oh, you must have had it easier because there are more women in your profession or work, while mine is a totally different level of stress, it's not true. Everyone deals with their stress in a different way. So it's just that we need to be more empathetic and understanding of every human story.
Right. But it's been a decade since you came into politics, in a full-fledged way. But is it easy for women to get into the political arena today? Because even last year, there were only 78 women who were elected to the Rajya Sabha, right?
Yeah, right. So here's the dichotomy that exists. There are many women who wish to contest, but their political parties don't see them as winning candidates. There are many women who come out and vote in political systems, right? When they come and exercise their vote, there are more women than men. But somehow women also don't end up voting for women at times. So the winnability is also something which becomes a challenge for any woman. And she has to really continue to keep proving herself in terms of being able to handle that responsibility. So I sincerely believe that women need to get together above their political differences and understand the bigger challenge is not your political ideology right now. The bigger challenge is to get more women voices out there in positions of power. Once you have more women in positions of power, you are going to see a change of narrative where women are looked at as equals, not as someone who can be talked over or someone who can be totally ignored in a setting of powerful people. So I think it has to be a huge collective, and that has to come very consciously from a woman's voting perspective also, and a candidate who is a woman also. So they have to consciously build those, collective voices to be able to make an impact. So I think that is where we women find politics a bit challenging, and we judge ourselves too harshly. And two things: when any lady or woman who wishes to join politics, I'd say it's much easier now than what it could have been, let's say, before the Anna Hazare movement, before a revolution like Aam Aadmi Party, the anti-corruption movement came about. It saw many professionals wanting to join. It also saw women coming out and actively participating, and then realizing that they could also become, important voices in the scheme of things. So there are many ways, but a woman needs to mentally adjust to the idea that this is not going to be a short turnaround, that you enter politics, someone standing in waiting to hand over the ticket to you for you to go contest. it is a lot of hard work. It is a lot of hard work and your sense of commitment to your values and to what you set out to do. So there are two ways any person who wishes to join politics can look at it. They can work to strengthen their organization, the ability of their organization, which is a political organization, and politics also is not just, it is social work with an ideology. If you wish to do social work, then maybe an NGO suits you better. But when you're looking at political space, and as an NGO also you can make impactful changes in policies. But if you're looking at political spaces, you have to understand that political ideology plus your, your ability to contribute to policy making is what brings you to politics. So one is organization, one is electoral. So whether you wish to contribute through by strengthening the organization, or whether you wish to contest. And if you're wishing to contest, where would you want to start off with? Would you want to start at corporation level? Would you be much happier doing, immediate next door neighbor work, society work, community work, etc., community building work? Would you want to look at representing a constituency as a in the legislative assembly, which is about your assembly, the area that you wish to represent, where you've been working? And third is a member of parliament. A member of parliament, whether it's the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, that's also something that choices that you have to be very clear about when you start engaging in a political system. So I'd say the path is much easier. Political parties are more open. They are waiting for more women to join in. Many times they are not given tickets also because there are not many women who can I would say the 33% reservation that we keep talking about, many political parties have tried to introduce that within their system, but they haven't been able to find the kind of talent or talent pool that I think we also really need to build upon. And I think it becomes the responsibility of every woman who is in position of power to be able to pull in more women into the system and make it a little more easier. Maybe if I face 10 hardships, the person coming after me should face only 8.
Right, right. But how much has politics changed in the last decade, since you entered in today? Because today there seems to be so much more hatred, so much more mudslinging. It's become, I don't know, it's become difficult even for the people to kind of watch sometimes.
Yes, it is. It is actually very painful that, if you look at India's core cultural values, there have been a lot of debates, discussions, and engagement on various levels with different political ideas, but having a conversation and agreeing to disagree. Right? You've had many intense debates, even in the parliament, whether it was Shyama Prasad Mukherjee versus Jawaharlal Nehru ji working in an organization with Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and having differences of opinion. So differences of opinion do not necessarily mean us versus them. Differences of opinion are good because you end up seeing the loopholes also that you think is a brilliant idea, but there's somebody else who has a problem with that idea that you're presenting. So you can even cross those loopholes by listening to what the other person is saying, and maybe improvising on the idea that you're bringing to the table. Unfortunately, we are living in times, and I think I started seeing the increase of it with every passing year. I joined at a time when we were immensely politically divided on two sides. It became an us versus them. But India has never been us versus them. India's politics has been about more centrist in nature, willing to listen to all sides, and that's what the democracy also encourages. Unfortunately, we don't see that anymore. We see a lot of I would say, hatred spewed so casually at each other. Anyone having a political point of view, even if they're not in politics, are also clamped down upon. You're using social media platforms which can be such instruments of change. I'd say social media helped me immensely to grow in politics, but how you use those platforms, are you using the platforms to increase your knowledge, to bring more value to it, or seek more value from it, or you're doing it just to hit out at people and using it in a way that silences voices? And this is not what it should have been. It should be more about empowering voices to be able to hear all sides and then having to do what you have to do. And that is how governments should work, and that is how democracies work. Unfortunately, we see a dearth of that, and social media platforms being misused to push this kind of an agenda, which is unfortunate.
Right. So for aspiring, politicians, people who want to come into politics today, what do you think are the skills that they need?
I think anyone who's wanting to come into politics, they need to understand I mean, go back to their civics textbook first. Honestly, I think whenever
Okay.
we talk about a lot of things, we do realize that people don't know the difference from what a municipal corporation does, local authorities do vis-a-vis what MLA does, vis-a-vis what MP does, what the functions of the government is, judiciary is, and we end up mixing that up a lot. But if a person who's aspiring to be in politics, they need to be very well read and have the context of what they bring to the table. They need to understand how they wish to contribute. Like I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
whether you would want to wish through organization building, add to organization capacity, or you would want to do electoral politics. If you are in it for electoral politics, then you have to ensure that you're 24/7 available for your constituency, because people now, when they vote, they choose who they are voting for. It is not political party based. It is more about what the individual credibility is. So that becomes extremely relevant in these times. And if you're looking at organization building, then what is the strength that you bring to an organization? For me, I was very clear that communication was something which was something I could bring value to in the political setup. And in terms of communication, also building it up with the knowledge I come with in terms of the kind of reading material I have, the kind of writing that I have been doing. So coming from that space, so you have to understand whether you can handle the organization through communication, whether it is through being on ground and supporting teams in various states, or whether it is about electoral politics. So, and then the last thing I'd say is, once you have all these you've understood where you want to go, the third thing you need to do is have a lot of patience and understand that some things may take time. And the whatever time, I would always say, whatever time it may take, just enjoy the journey. And because if it is if it's a journey that you enjoy, the fruits of it also would be very, I would say, positive, and in the sense more satisfying, that you have traversed this distance, you've traversed this journey passionately, and you've reached towards your goals, to maybe reach some other goals you set for yourself. So it is about patience, time, understanding what value add you're bringing, where you wish to see yourself, and how you will go about it.
Right. You are, like you said, very active on social media. You're also outspoken, but you put across your points in a very dignified way. I mean, it's not like, how other people tend to do it. How important is it for you to stay connected to the people?
It's very important. Though my most of my work was facing television, etc. But I have consciously moved away from that to be able to change and be able to be some kind of a change maker, and be able to add some value to the lives of people who perhaps look at me as I would say, someone who can be a source of help and a source of I would say be able to show the way. So I have that gives me an immense satisfaction, being able to be there for people. And I think Corona kind of also taught me that there is a lot you can do if you're willing to. I would say, even when I began my journey, when I quit my job and I began with post 26/11, I realized that a lot of strength comes from within me. And even if I'm standing as an individual, there's a lot I can change in perhaps someone else's life by just being there, by just understanding their pain, their hurt at that point of time. And I'm glad that when that journey began, I also realized that there was a side of me which wanted to really contribute towards society and the community building, as well as through community building, nation building.
Okay. You are a voracious reader. You've written columns, you've blogged. We've seen that across many media. What are some of your other passions, new things that you enjoy doing?
So, I hate to say it at a time like this, but there was a time when I did not get a lot of chance to spend with my children when they were growing up. My daughter was just 2 when I started, when I got into the space of politics, and work kept me away a lot. So I do spend a lot of time with my children, whatever little time I get with them, and I value that time simply because they are both now quite grown up. They don't need their mother around them, but yet it gives me a lot of satisfaction. I love traveling. I love listening to music. And I make a lot of goofy videos with my daughter, which I never put up, but we both do that because she enjoys that a lot. And yes, I mean, basically just if given a chance just to be at home and spend time with the children, I think they're the biggest stress buster for me. And yeah, so these are things I like watching movies. I do watch a lot of movies at, whenever I get some free time. I catch up on a lot of Netflix series as well, but I don't share that much on social media platforms for the fear of being trolled and judged for taking time out to even get entertained. I catch up on a lot of Bollywood news, etc. So when I heard about Sushant Singh Rajput, and I've been a huge fan of his, it was just so saddening, and it also kept driving me to read up more about him and realize that there's one part of a person which you're just not, you're just unaware of, simply because you're so struck by the talent that they've brought in terms of cinema. And there's just so much more to a human being than just the profession they've chosen. And I think that also kind of tells you that there are people out there who, are good at everything that they choose to do, and they're also at the same time extremely fragile.
Yeah, that's true. But how, when you entered politics, like you said, your children were small. How did you manage to, balance your political life and your family?
It was very tough initially because at that point in time, my family was not very happy about this decision, and they felt that people just, because there's no path to it, and there's so much negativity attached to the word politics, especially women in politics. And I'd say a lot of movies have built that caricature about women who come to politics are either, whatever. I mean, they've already been judged as soon as they get into politics. So there was initially a lot of hesitance coming from my husband as well. He wanted to know why I would want to just give up my well-paying job, the business I was doing, to get into something which was so uncertain, so unpredictable, brought in so much stress along with it. But however, we lived through those times as well, and he understood my passion for it, and he has been extremely cooperative. And I'd say that if you do not have a strong family structure, it does become a lot more difficult journey than it is. The kids were equally managed by both of us, and I'd say managed more by him, and they are more attached to him, and they're likely to tell him more than they come and tell me, and feel sense of comfort more to tell him than tell me. So that's been one. And I think my children were very young when I started out in politics. My son is now 17, my daughter is going to be 13 next month. So they have seen their mother struggle. They've understood that they had to become a lot more independent earlier, sooner rather than later. And so they also have been, I would say, played a very important role in this journey. I come from a large family. My sisters, my brother have been extremely encouraging. So that kind of helps. That environment where initially, of course, everybody has their ups and downs. It did face a problem. But then after that, they kind of adjusted to the pattern that I was leading and living.
Okay. And lastly, I'd like to know, what would you like to be your political legacy?
Oops. Two things that I passionately feel about. I would want to see, through me, many more women choosing politics as a career. And being able to see a time and space where women outnumber men in the parliament. That's not my legacy per se, but I would say that I would want to be a facilitator, a contributor to that. But in terms of legacy, I strongly feel about education. I strongly feel about our next generation. and how we can bring value to their lives, considering they live in a very exposed environment, an environment which is so deeply connected technologically, as well as boundaries across the world have fallen apart, and people are more on the same platform thanks to a mobile phone and internet working. And the more technology invades our spaces, how we bring value of living in our children. The next generation should not just value education, not just value health systems. They should also value every minute of their lives, being conscious in every moment. So that if there is a legacy that I would want to leave behind, is leaving behind an education system which values every moment of living, rather than rote learning, rather than grades, rather than exams stressing them. So those are areas I'm passionate about, and my legacy would definitely have to do something in health and education.
Okay, great. And there are a lot of viewers who want you to say something in Hindi for them.
अरे, I'm so sorry. Please, I'm so sorry. मुझे ध्यान ही नहीं रहा. पर मैं तो बस यही यहाँ पे कहना चाहूँगी, और मैं बार बार कहती हूँ और सबसे यही कहती हूँ कि अपने आप पे पूरा भरोसा रखें, अपनी काबिलियत पे पूरा विश्वास रखें, और कोई भी आपको आपके रास्ते से दूर नहीं कर सकता है अगर आप धैर्य से, समय लेकर और फोकस से काम करेंगे. आपको तकलीफें रास्तों में बहुत आएंगी, आपको बहुत लोग जज भी करेंगे, और मेरे साथ हो चुका है. मैंने तो 10 सालों में काफ़ी जिंदगियां जी ली हैं. पर मैं बस यही कहूँगी, अपने ऊपर कभी भरोसा नहीं छोड़ें, अपनी काबिलियत को कभी भी अंडरमाइन नहीं करें. कोई और आपको ना जज करे कि आप में क्या क्षमता है, क्या नहीं है. कि आपकी क्षमता आपसे अच्छा कोई नहीं जानता है. तो ये मेरा मानना है, और अपनी ज़िंदगी भी उसी तरीके से जिए कि कोई बाहर वाला आपके मानसिक संतुलन को नहीं बिगाड़ सकता है, आपके धैर्य को नहीं ख़त्म कर सकता है, आपके फोकस को नहीं डिसमिस कर सकता है. जो आपके मन का पैशन है, आप उसको फॉलो करिए. मैं कभी भी सोचा नहीं था जिंदगी में, जब मैं बड़ी हो रही थी, कि मैं कभी भी दूर दूर तक राजनीति से जुड़ूंगी. कभी सोचा ही नहीं था. पर मेरा रास्ता मुझे यहाँ पर ले आया, और उस रास्ते को चलते हुए जो मेरे मन में जो सेटिस्फैक्शन है, मुझे लगता है कि यही मेरी कॉलिंग है. तो आप बस जो आपका पैशन है, आप उसको फॉलो करिए, अपने आप पे विश्वास रखिए, और बाकी सारा भगवान देखेंगे.
Thank you so much, Priyanka ji. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thanks.
And wishing you the very best.
Thank you so much.
And hope to meet you soon one day.